Hey y'all, Kylie here to let you know that this week's audio is a little shaky, but it fits right in with the topic of not judging, so don't judge us. We had some technical issues and we will be all back to normal with our high quality, top tier audio next week.
In this episode, we're going to talk about what makes a person judgmental, how being judgy can affect your life long term, and in this episode, we'll explore how judging others and ourselves can make us unhappy.
How you doing, Lex?
I am doing pretty good. I've been booked and busy and tired, but it's like, you know how it feels different when you're tired, but it's like, oh damn, I did a lot of stuff today and you feel tired versus when you're like, just blah, blah, I'm tired. So it's cool. It's what I asked for. And things are going pretty well. So I am enjoying my day-to-day as of late. It feels good because I feel like a lot of pieces are coming together and like you start to see a little bit more long-term vision, etc. So I'm pushing along. How about you?
All I can hear is, I used to pray for times like this. I'm good. I have been so much more peaceful. I've been working on being more gentle with myself, and like the more gentle I am with myself, I'm still getting shit done. I still feel like you said, at the end of the day, like I did, everything that I could, but I'm not like wilding, and I don't know, I just feel good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. I feel like I can for sure tell in my life, tell me if you can, a difference in like since we've started podcasting, and we kind of talk about like, being able to relax and or just like not take things as, seriously, let them affect you as much. For me, I feel like I have been able to move like day to day and be like, oh, I feel good about today. And not feeling as stressed as much in that capacity. How about you?
Definitely. A great Twitter philosopher once said, "It ain't that deep." And shout out to you.
And really, hold on, where'd I get that from? And really, shout out to John Conyers Jr. because that's something that he said.
And that is so true. I feel like I've been so much more peaceful since we started podcasting. I guess all this, learning, uncovering and things that we do, for the episodes, like help us as well. And it's like this journey, but I'm just in a really good place. And so I'm enjoying like where I am and peeling back these layers.
Yeah, but also I would say too that really only in the last few months, also when you feel more secure with like money, other things, then it's like, oh, okay, I don't have as much reason to like feel some kind of way either. But also at the same time, just not as worried about it. But you can definitely tell. I feel like when I look back, that's the most like when you're stressed, it's like really kind of ties into that kind of stuff as well, where it's like you don't really know what's about to happen next. And so now it's like, let me remember how that feels, and also let me continue to like push forward and do the things I need to do. Once you see like, okay, like I see how this can work, and just making sure you don't stop there. So we still have a ways to go, but enjoying where we are, and I think that's the big key. We hope all of you guys are doing well. Hit us up from time to time. Leave us a review, a comment, 5 stars, however you want to holler at us. We are on Carly's Couch across the board on social media. You can talk to us on the website. So keep in touch. Let us know how you're doing and let us know how you've been feeling about these episodes.
And if you have any ideas, you can also call us and let us know if you have questions or ideas for episodes, because we're always open to bringing guests on and just exploring topics that, we like to learn. So hit us up, let us know.
Yep. And so today we're talking about being judgy. And I don't remember why this came up. If it was, I think it's just something we were saying.
I think it's something in the episode.
Yeah, I think it's something maybe that we said in the episode, and or I think it hit me too because it's something I feel like I see often in like blogs or different things when they're talking about like the art of not being judgmental, and like with Deepak Chopra and Buddhism, being non-judgmental is like a big part. And so I just felt like that was enough of something that we can maybe dive into a little bit more today. And so I kind of was just thinking about like what, assessing my own, like where I'm at on the scale of being judgmental. And it's like, what makes you like that? And, what's wrong with it? What does that do to you? What does that reflect about you? So those are kind of the questions that we were kind of diving into today, and want to apply to our lives, a means of not being as judgmental and kind of seeing how does that affect your happiness and affect your well-being day to day.
because that's the first of the 7 spiritual laws of success, right? It's like non-judgment, or it's like I won't judge anything that happens today. It's one of them.
I don't know if it's the first necessarily, but it's definitely one of the 7, and it's just a big part of it. Just because I guess when you think about it, like when you're judging something, you're not in the present moment. You're trying to define things, and overall you're kind of limiting. But we'll get into that. Carly, how judgmental? Oh, so I wanna, and you want it from me because I already know the answer. But I'm gonna ask you of me. How judgmental would you say that I am?
I say you're fairly judgmental, for sure.
I'm definitely on the spectrum.
Yeah, definitely on a few things, but but definitely I would say fairly judgmental. I don't think you're judgmental of people too much, like at least not in like a friend capacity or anything like that. Because it's like I feel like I could tell you stuff without you being like damn, like nothing like that. You might tease me, but you're not really judging me. But yeah, I'm fairly.
Yeah, no, I would say I am pretty judgmental, but also, and I guess we'll get into why, like, I kind of understand, or I start to see, like, what that I think reflects, and, like, what things I'm judgmental about, because those are things, like, that I think about, like, people's productivity, and, certain things like that, like, maybe around work, and probably, like, things that are characteristics or qualities of the type of person that I'm trying to be, type thing. I think that's probably where that comes out a lot. And with you, I would say you don't come across very judgmental, like outwardly, at least. Like, I don't know what people think. For me, I know mine is pretty outward, or can be very outward. But for you, I would say not very outward at all. So you don't come across as judgmental, and I think you come across very agreeable. Or that's what, remember that's what somebody said. And I felt like, oh, she was very agreeable. And I was like, well, that's a good word. I started to use that in my planner. Like, oh, I want to feel like I'm being agreeable, because I know I could be very like conflicting, like, somebody says something, it's like, yeah, but what about this, and it's like, no, you can actually just like be like, yeah, and just just be chilling. I don't do that. So I would say you don't seem to be very judgmental. What do you think about yourself?
I don't think I'm very judgmental, and it's interesting you said outwardly, because I'm definitely not as much outwardly. I've been judging myself a lot, but I'm working on that. That's the being more gentle with myself. And through this, which we'll talk about, I kind of explore like what that comes from and what that is. But yeah, outwardly, I'm not very judgy.
But also, I want to point out some examples too, because being judgmental it doesn't have to be as deep as like harsh and like mean, like super mean, and like make somebody feel crazy. It can even just be like, I don't know about that color, like, or even thinking those things, or dang, why'd they cross the street when I was walking by? Like, all of those are judgment. So like we do judge a lot, but for sure there's levels. So some examples, I'll just give a couple and you can give a couple. And this is, I would say, I think that it has just as much effect on you if you say them out loud, or if you're just having it in your head, because you're still in like that same kind of space even when you're thinking stuff. So like, why does she wear that, or why is he doing a thing that way? Like if you see somebody like, oh, they stapled it on the right side of the paper instead of the left, like, why would you?
I just judged in my head.
Yeah, like even just being like, why would you do that? You know what I mean? So that doesn't seem crazy to like say that, but that's a judgment. Though.
And I literally was like, why would you do that? As soon as you said that.
Yeah, I'm like, bro, like this is crazy. Another one is like, oh, that movie was terrible. So like the movie might have been bad, but to say that movie was terrible, that's still a judgment. So just examples. What other examples?
Oh man, last night I went to dinner for my friend's birthday, and I was like,
I
was judging the hell out of the food. Boy, maybe I'm a little more judgy than I thought. When you start to look at how it applies, like outside of just people, but other things is like, people in your life when they have a spouse, like, man, their spouse is whack or so beneath them, or they should be with somebody better. Like, I think anytime you start to hear, like, anytime you hear should, like they should be doing this, when you start judging other people's decisions or thinking you know better than them. And then I was thinking about this relationally. So let's say somebody cuts you off on the highway. Automatically, for most people, your judgment is, oh, they're a terrible driver, they're an asshole, they're this, they're that.
They can't drive here.
Yeah, it's like, an indictment on their character. But if we cut somebody off, it's like, oh man, I had enough space, I needed to get over. And you kind of like wave at them, thank you. And then like the same thing. And so I think it's funny how we tend to judge other people's characters by their actions, but we don't judge our character like most of the time by our actions. But we do the same thing.
That reminds me of it was some set of pictures, so to make it like a meme, and this wasn't like a crazy popular meme that I remember seeing, and I was laughing because it was like the way she was looking at the girl sitting in her car. She was like, Like when you be like, yo, bitch, you better not hit my car. Like when you be looking at somebody else. But then she was like, but when somebody's coming to you, you be like, man, I ain't finna hit your car. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like I see you. So it's like the same thing, but you like, yeah, like you get real close. Boy. But if it's you be like, man, you worried. Like, or somebody hunks, she's like, well, I wasn't coming out. Like, relax. So it's like either way, like you just have to think about it that way. So that's judgment. That's carrying judgments and carrying judgments. I would say it means like putting a meaning to something, putting a rating to something, like judging something is the definition.
Defining if it's good or bad.
Yeah, trying to place it in a box. Defining a thing is judging a thing. So what happens when we do that?
Whenever we judge, we are fusing like our perception, like how we view things, and reality. And so we're creating like a separation, and it could be creating a separation, a lack of acceptance, because like Lexi could accept something and it's cool with her, but for me, I would deem it as bad. And so then we start to project our own values and beliefs and visions onto the world.
A thing. Yeah. So the same thing. So to use what you just said, an example of that was saying, man, that restaurant was awful, instead of just saying, oh, I didn't like that restaurant. So you see the difference in that? And it's so interesting, like, oh, damn, there's a big difference. Like, oh, that movie was terrible. When people ask, so how was Harry Potter? Oh, that shit was terrible. Or you'd be like, yeah, it wasn't for me. Like, that wasn't, I didn't care for it. That says a totally different thing, because to say it's terrible defines that for the person you're talking to as well. So I thought that was very interesting when I found that, like, oh, I wonder how many statements I could adjust in that way.
Yeah, and then it also draws attention and gives power to things that like might not be true. Like, for example, like you might think somebody not returning your phone call was rude and that they're a rude person, and you don't know what's happening in their life. Like they could have had a family emergency or something like that. So now you're judging them off of this thing that's not even real.
And so going along with the next one, it stops any further thinking. So when you make judgments, any judgment you make, any of the examples that we've used, I believe fall into this category too. You're just saying, hey, this is this. And so it stops any further thinking about it. Like, this movie is terrible. And
we're done.
That's it. Yeah, we're done. You were ridiculous for having stapled that paper that way. That's what it is. It's not like, oh, that was an interesting way you did that. Like, it's a judgment. So it's like you're stopping, you're thinking, and you're kind of limiting seeing anything else, like what might have happened in a person's life or whatever else.
Yeah, that completely shuts off curiosity, and that like stops beginner's mind. If you're like, I'm not good at skating, therefore I don't want to skate. It's like, dang, you're missing out on all the things that could be, or different types.
Skating's whack. Like they look goofy out there skating, and it's like, okay, like so skating is goofy, and there's no space for anything.
So then you close yourself off. Dang, and if you start judging everything, you're gonna be closed off to everything.
Yeah, so I guess that's kind of what also in turn keeps you from growing, and or just keeps you from being like kind of happy in general, because like if you're kind of closing off things, I used to make fun of my brother all the time, because we had this thing where I'm like, bro, like you don't realize you do this all the time, but we might be talking about a thing like, oh man, yeah, roasted chicken, that hits a little better when you put rosemary on it. I hate rosemary. Like, and I'm like, okay, like was it that deep? Like, but then I started noticing, like I was saying anything like, oh man, look at that PT Cruiser right there. I hate PT Cruisers. Like, so anytime he would say, like, express dislike into something, he would say, like, I hate the thing. I'm like, bro, do you realize, like, that's kind of deep, like, that you say it that much? And so it started to be a thing where every time he say it, I'd be like, oh, there you go. And then we would laugh, because, like, damn, like, it's kind of becomes a habit to kind of get into that mode. And maybe you don't like the thing. That's fine. That's your opinion. But it's, like, catch yourself in how you're, like, cutting off just cutting off, like, thinking about other things. Or even in that moment, like, the way he would express it, it's like, it's almost like he kind of got angry a little bit. Like,
like a very
like, yeah, why is your blood pressure going up because we saw PT Cruiser, you know? So, like, that also can have, like, kind of a negative effect on you, because it's like you're almost, like, riling up your emotion about it. Like, the movie was terrible. And so, like, yeah, that wasn't the best, I didn't care for it. I feel like that probably affects your body differently as well. In the long term, for sure. Because
anytime you like induce stress and anxiety about certain things, and whenever you have those, like your body doesn't know the difference in you like hating a movie or hating a PC Cruiser versus like hating a person and running from things. And so it all our bodies react the same way regardless of whatever the trigger is.
Yeah, and now you probably know this too. It's gonna be real funny if it happens. So another thing is that I thought about the fact, I'm like, you know what? I feel like it's easy to notice judgmental behavior in others. Which is why at the beginning I asked you what you thought about me, because I think sometimes like we don't realize exactly like how we're saying a thing or what that means, what we're saying. I definitely, so like when I'm online, I'll always catch stuff all the time, especially looking at Twitter. Like let's say if somebody's like, oh, the sky is blue today. And somebody might quote that and be like, oh, so you don't like the sunset? And even stuff like that, right? I might read it and be like, damn, like, why you not let him live? Like, why y'all gotta answer to everything? Why you gotta do this? But now I'm judging. So it's like interesting that, I can see it. I'm like, why are people just jumping on everything so much? But also then I always have to catch myself and be like, and anyway, keep scrolling because that ain't my business either. So it's kind of like, can kind of be like a cycle, but you definitely can see it, especially if somebody's directing it towards you. We can notice when we feel like we're being judged or we don't really feel safe and talking about a thing or saying a thing, etc., because they might feel some kind of way because that person is judgmental.
Mm-hmm. And it's always so much easier to see other people's problems than our own. But that's that whole like, why are you pointing out other people's foot when you have a log in your own eye? Like whatever scripture that is.
That's not whatever scripture that is. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You know exactly what it is.
I don't even know what that is, dude. Did you write that or did I write that? I might have wrote it.
You wrote it.
So I also wrote getting defensive of loved ones when relaying stories about how people judge them. But I don't know what that means anymore.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the thing below that. I definitely wrote that. Okay,
oh, you did? Okay, because I was about to be like, what was I talking about?
So just in thinking about like how easy it is to notice judgment out of people, I can be very defensive and protective over my friends. Like that's just a thing that I'm like, exploring.
Like if I'm talking to you and judging somebody else,
or no, someone was judging you. So somebody was like saying, if we were around each other and somebody said something, like it's so easy for me to notice. I'm like, wait, why you guys judge her? Why this or why that? And so just how easy it is to notice like what your triggers are and how everything is related. Mm-hmm. But one of mine is like, if I love somebody, I don't like people talking about them and doing things. So I just notice like when they
you loyal. That's real. I also think that we realize that it's easy to notice in others. But for me, noticing in other people also kind of triggers something in me so that I can kind of catch myself. And what I've started to do is like when I can catch myself being judgy, I'll ask myself like how I'm feeling. So I actually like, it sounds like you don't really do that, but like I actually really catch it a lot of times. Especially if it's like something that I notice I'm frustrated enough. Like, like if somebody comes around and you're like, I'm feeling kind of some kind of way, but like, why? Like, what exactly is that? And I'll really ask myself. And so I notice that usually it's when I'm like being stressed myself. So if I'm really kind of not feeling good about something, my own actions, my own productivity, if I'm like, oh man, all week I haven't, been starting my day earlier like I should. The next time I see somebody and they're just sitting there, it's like, oh, dang, you don't got no work to do? Like, you know what I mean? So it's really kind of just a reflection of like, kind of that might make me feel better in the moment, but like, oh, okay, well, I'm doing better than that or whatever. So I can always kind of notice that there's something usually going on with me if I'm even worried about what somebody else is doing,
Mm-hmm. And it's the same for me. It's also just a reference point, like noticing what triggers that in me. So like you said, if I haven't been productive all week, like I might be more judgy, or if I'm feeling really insecure about something, I tend to be more judgy because, whatever vibration you're on is kind of the energy that you give out. And so it becomes a lot easier. Like if I'm having a bad day, I am much more likely to be upset in traffic than if I'm like having a good ass day. Like it's just different things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're saying the same thing as far as it's almost like misery loves company. So like if you catch yourself being judgy, it's like, damn, what am I judging myself about? Mm-hmm. And judgment signifies a lack of self-acceptance. It can be because you could be at war with yourself. So it's almost like you're kind of casting that onto somebody else to feel good. So notice next time that you make kind of a judging statement, especially about a person, what that might mean. I'm trying to think now back to some of our examples that are not as deep. Like if you're like, oh, this restaurant sucks.
Also, it's
like
judging.
That doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, that means you're saying something about yourself.
Mm-mm. But there are a lot of reasons I think people judge. Like one of them, I think a root cause is like insecurity or a trigger, or you're upset, like something like you have a lot of tension or anger or anxiety or stress, whatever, and so you can kind of put that out there. I think another one is like a defense mechanism, because it's easier to feel in control if you can classify things like that's good, that's bad, he's good, she's bad, this is this, and so you feel more in control of your life when we're really not, which is a whole other thing. But I think that's really why we judge things. And when we talk about judgment, it's not even just people or their actions, but it's anything in your life. Like, oh, this is a great opportunity. This is a terrible opportunity. Like even thinking about it like that.
Yep. And then you can also be holding resentment, which I think we kind of were starting to mention as well, of someone else's success, or it could be a reflection of jealousy, or which again, I think jealousy is kind of a judgment of yourself of not having a thing or not doing a thing that somebody else is doing. So it all kind of relates. Or maybe it's just something you're unable to express or shameful to express. And so you're in judging others. It's kind of like, well, you kind of bringing them down to that same level as well. So I kind of started getting into it earlier when I was talking about my brother, and it's like, bro, it seems like you're almost got angry talking about it. But what effect can it have on us and on our lives with being judgmental?
So if you're always judging things, and especially if bad, that like trains your mind and your thoughts to look for the bad things, like the bad spaces, bad actions. And so inevitably, whenever you start looking for things, you start seeing them. Your reticular activation system starts to see all of the bad things and all the triggers and all these red flags and everything else in your life. And so you're creating a negative life.
And then it's just too much negative energy that then has adverse health effects on you. So like we said, like it can get you more stressed, anxious, high blood pressure, digestive issues. A lot of that stuff kind of all relates to stresses. And I feel like you really can kind of see that when you're judging somebody. Like again, you're probably your brow is furrowed, your brow is furrowed, and like, you know what I mean? Like you just, it's not a place of like just relaxing, or feeling at peace. And so imagine like that ongoing. It's like, oh man, which makes me think, I wonder if one way to maybe, notice / combat being judgmental is if we watch our tone. Like if you can pay attention, maybe like, oh, my tone just kind of changed. Or if you could try to say things like, yeah, that movie was terrible. But if you say that smiling, it's like, oh wait, like what am I really saying? I don't know. I wonder if that's a way to maybe catch it or something.
I was about to say, when we were talking, we're on the same wave, because I was like, yo, if you notice, so think about something that you judge heavily, like bad driving or people who posted before and after pictures, but the other way. Like, you know, like little things that like piss you off.
Not after and before. Like that's what happened.
But like if you start judging people, like just notice how it feels in your body. And the more aware you are, like, oh man, my brow is like this. I start gritting my jaw, or I have like this anxiety. Then you can start to release it, because you'll start to notice it comes up. My fist starts to get clenched, like Arthur.
That's not that deep.
Yeah, it really ain't that deep to see a PT Guru and be like, rah. Like it ain't that deep. So I would challenge you to take some time this week, like think about things you actually judge. You know, it's internal, ain't nobody judging you. And then notice how it feels whenever you start judging, or think about something that like pisses you off, or is like whatever, and just notice how it feels. And so whenever it comes up, you can kind of face it and start to like look at it.
And notice it for yourself too, because we've talked a lot about like self-talk, and I think it is something you kind of have to train yourself to get aware of, because I think we are in such a habit of the way we talk to ourselves that you might not always catch it. But again, you may feel some kind of way and then realize, oh, it's like you to you. So it also, you might also just catch yourself being like, oh man, my hair's looking bad today, or like whatever it is, but like you still have to catch that too. It's not just you talking about other people. And I think maybe even easier is talking about things like, oh, this food sucks, or like, you know,
it's so hot. It's terrible. It's so hot
outside. Yeah, like, stuff like that also might be easy to catch too. It's like, because you know, people who seem like they're always like complaining, and really it's like they're always judging stuff. And it's like, yo, imagine how much freer you could feel if you're not constantly judging everything.
And that's, I think, one of the biggest pieces of the issue of judgment. Like, so why is it like bad to judge things? And that's because it stunts your personal growth. Not only does it close you off from things, but you're always looking for the bad. You're not open to new things. And it can also hurt your relationships if you're always looking for the bad in people and their mistakes and what they're doing, or how they did something that you didn't like. And you put the cups upside down instead of like this. And it's just like nonsense.
And I think sometimes too, it's not even always like looking for the bad, but it's like sometimes you just don't always have to call it out. You know what I mean? Like, so there's levels to it also. It's like, if he stapled a paper on the right side of the paper, it's like, like you can also just, I'm gonna say nothing. You like, so you're still judging in your head, but like, there's also levels to like how you can let that affect relationships. So yeah, and that's something I'm working on too, because I know that sometimes there's things, and if you have close relationships, there's always like things like, oh, that kind of maybe annoy you or whatever. But even just like, you know what, like catching yourself and not saying something can be a second to be like, it's not that deep, you know. And then you go into yourself like, all right, I don't need to worry about that right now.
I actually have an example of that today, and why like it's helpful to catch yourself in the moment. So I had a miscommunication somebody thought we was gonna meet them there. They thought I was gonna pick them up. It was a whole thing. And instead of like
just waiting outside.
Nah, they wasn't waiting. I was sitting at the place like, So instead of like being like, yo, dumbass, or like, what the fuck was wrong with me? I should have known. Instead of like judging myself or judging them or judging the situation, I was like, okay, I'm gonna come get you. Like, let's just
move on.
But then we were able to have like a really great, meeting and a great experience and all these things. But if I would have had an attitude, I could have completely shut that down.
That's good.
Had been like, nah, you should have done.
And you would have been judging like their like business acumen, their this, their that.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what? Like next time I'll be like, hey, are you gonna be there? Or am I picking you up?
What's the plan?
Yeah, and just move on. That's a good example. So now to kind of flip it the other way around, how can we practice? Before how we practice being non-judgmental, what are the benefits of being non-judgmental? So we're kind of talking about like why it's bad when you are. But one of the benefits I think of being non-judgmental is you really are opened up to more of life's beauty. Like things just happen, or things happen a different way, or like that could be beautiful that you stapled it on the right side, or like, wow, you're left-handed, so like you have a whole different world, and like you're kind of more open to like what's going on.
And letting go of judgment allows you to better enjoy and appreciate where you are. If you're not constantly judging everything that's going on in your life and judging yourself, it just allows you to be present and enjoy it.
Yeah, and we've talked about peace a few times. So I think cultivating a peaceful mind where it's just not constantly trying to label things. You're just there in the moment. It's more peaceful and more enjoyable.
And then whenever your vision is not clouded by judgment, you see everything more clearly, like people's situations. You see what's actually happening and not your negative lens or your judgmental lens of whatever it is. You just see things for what they really are.
Mm-hmm. And so when I was looking at it now, like, okay, all this is cool, but how do we actually practice that? How do you really go about not judging things? I found a couple things I liked. And one said, non-judgment is not about stopping judgments from ever arising. That's impossible because it's in our nature to judge. But it's about changing your relationship to the judgments. So knowing that they're temporary thoughts and that you don't need to be swept away by them just because they arise in your mind. So again, it's like you might have thought something, but like you can stop before you say or stop before you react. Or perhaps like just let it die there and then you move on. Because also sometimes when you're judgmental, like your story, like that could have carried on through the day, or like, it's just added tension, added stress to your day. Even when you're judging, like, man, it's hot out here. Like that's added, to your day, kind of.
Mm-hmm. And I think a great example of this, and I love the way you explained it, is in The Untethered Soul, he talks about how you can't stop thoughts, right? Like we're human. And inevitably, good thoughts, bad thoughts, or deemed good, bad thoughts, bad thoughts, emotions. You can't stop them, but imagine like you have a lake or a pond and you throw a rock in it. There's all these ripples. If you try to get in and stop the ripples, you're just going to make more ripples. Mm-hmm. So you just kind of got to let them hoes go die down and keep it moving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a good weight off your shoulders. I can imagine. And actually, in times when I've had it down, I'm like, you know what? Don't even worry about it. Like, it's just kind of like letting it go in the moment. And it just feels better.
Mm-hmm. And in practicing non-judgment, there's no longer anything that you have to do about the present moment to try to stop the ripples or your thoughts or your judgments or leaning into them. You don't resist what's there. You kind of let things be and you get to enjoy your life experience.
Yeah, actually, I like that idea a lot. Like, if you're not judging things, there's nothing to do. You're just there. When we're judging things, like, oh, it's hot. And it's like, you're like, gotta figure this out. Or it's like, oh, why did you do it that way? Like, it's like in your brain, it's like, oh, you should have did this. Or like, you just keep doing stuff. And it's like, you don't have to do anything. It's not that deep again.
And I think our brains do that because they like to solve problems and feel useful. Like we like to solve problems and do things because then we feel productive and we feel all that. And realizing that life is something to be experienced, not solved, not fixed, not made, whatever. It just kind of is.
And I wrote down one quote from, as a psychotherapist and teacher, his name's David Richo, or Richo. And it says, if I notice myself judging, I simply witness it and come back to the moment and to what the person facing me is experiencing. If I notice that I am transferring my own fears onto the other, I can tap myself on the shoulder metaphorically and redirect my attention to what the other person is actually feeling. So that kind of confirms what we were saying earlier about like, just take a minute, make sure you're not just reflecting your own self on somebody. If you're not projecting, is what I was looking for, on the other person. It's like, what are they just saying? What are they just feeling right now without you judging what's being said?
And I love that quote. And also thinking about like, it's not bad whenever you have like judging thoughts. Like we're humans, that's what we do a lot of the time. Like I said, it's to keep us safe and it's what our brains naturally do. But you can look at it as an opportunity to become curious and to thinking about like exploring a situation, like rather than directing your anger or projecting your fears on someone, you could just be curious, like, I wonder why I feel this way. I wonder where this anger is coming from, or I wonder why I am projecting.
Or like somebody cut you off, like, oh, I wonder where they're going. Like,
yeah.
Or, oh, I wonder if he's left-handed when he stapled paper. Like, you can just be open in general. And I think that's great because you're just exploring now, maybe learn something. Or maybe it just actually humanizes people. You know, judging them is almost like, oh, you should have did this or have an expectation. But it's like, oh, maybe you're in a rush too. Like, we're all in a rush. So kind of just allows everybody to be a little bit more human.
And I think it offers yourself an opportunity to figure out, what's something that could be healed in me. Like, why am I so judgy? Why does that bother me so much? So being curious about the entire situation.
Mm-hmm. And in the 7 spiritual laws of success, when Deepak was talking about non-judgment, you said this earlier. It's like, when you wake up, kind of just like be intentional about I will not judge anything today. But I feel like that's wild. And even if it's like, for the next 5 minutes or like the next hour, like as long as you can try to train yourself to think about it, I think it's just interesting how often we really do. Like you could just be sitting at your computer, but like, oh, why'd they do that font? Or like, it not even have to be them, but it's like, oh, like, why won't this work? Or like, whatever it is, right? Like we're just judging things all day. So trying to really catch it could be interesting to see how often you might be in that practice.
Man, the first time I listened to that book, I was like, I'm gonna do a whole day.
Oh, bro, yeah. You be forgetting about it literally in 20 seconds.
No, be forgetting, but even after 5 minutes, I was exhausted. I was like, I done judged this coffee, this food, what's happening in this meeting, what's on this TV. I'm like, oh my God, we literally judge everything all day. Mm-hmm. And that also expends a lot of energy. So if you're feeling drained, you might just look at how bad, like how often you're judging things and how much energy you're putting into how hot it is or how bad that meeting was or how bad you did in that presentation, quote unquote, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And also though, I think there's something to, I think when you are more non-judgmental or during times of being non-judgmental, sometimes you can also kind of come across as like nonchalant, which is something I think that's interesting in relationships. Like, for example, sometimes it's like, oh, you don't care. Like somebody's venting to me. And to me, it doesn't help them to be like, what? Maybe the other person was just this, or don't worry about it type stuff. Like people are also not trying to hear that sometimes too. So I think in being non-judgmental, kind of just focus on your own judgments, but there's still the place to like, if somebody wants to talk about how hot it is and like, they're having a bad day and they may want to talk about it, not necessarily jumping on your high horse. So that's something I'm kind of trying to figure out is like, just let people talk and be angry at stuff. But in my head, I'm like, you're just like overly judging the situation. But maybe that's not for me to try to solve for them.
Maybe it's not for you to judge, but I think the same thing. Like the thing I put about feeling like, judging people's life decisions. Sometimes I do that, especially like I notice it a lot. Like when my mom, like, why did she do that and not this? I'm like, bro, why do you care that much? Like, oh, it's her life.
Or maybe, but the thing is, I think it's okay to care about it.
Yeah.
Because you should. Like, I was like, oh man, my daughter is like out here homeless or whatever. Like, how did this happen? Or like, you might be judging it or whatever. But you can care. You're like, why didn't you go to school? Why didn't this happen? Why didn't that happen? But I guess there's still some kind of level of like acceptance of what's reality and not judging in that. Can there be a safe space to like for something to happen or to change? Otherwise, it's like if it's just straight judgment for judgment's sake and there's nothing coming out of it, then this is pointless. Now it's like, you're just wasting your brain space.
Yeah, and I think that's a mix of beginner's mind and non-judgment and just creating that space. But also, Buddha says like suffering is resisting what is, and so just not resisting it, allowing things to be, and still loving people.
Yeah, being there for people as you can and as they need you to be sometimes. So that's our episode on being judgy. Hope you got something out of that. I got some interesting tidbits. Just in different ways of thinking about judgment and how to, especially with the whole like putting labels on things. So like this movie's terrible versus I didn't like the movie. That was the biggest thing for me that I was like, oh, I could try to implement that or notice that. So we hope you got something out of it that you can implement as well. Or you can assess yourself to see like how judgy are you? And I would even recommend you ask somebody else to like, yo, how judgy am I? Because you think, well, see, I'm about to judge y'all. You think you're not judgy, but you probably are more than you think.
I'm glad that you asked that because I thought we were just gonna ask ourselves, and so I'm glad, like, external opinion too.
But I know myself. I would have been like, I'd be judging the hell out of everything. But so I wouldn't have been fake, but also I think it makes more sense because I think, well, no, not necessarily. It affects ourselves too, but in being a judgmental person, that affects the other people around you a lot. And so if you're not really cognizant of how judgmental you are, it could be a surprise. You could be like, oh, like you think that for real about me? But yeah, I know. Trust me.
Very self-aware.
I'm very aware about that one.
So let us know how judgy you are. Try some of these exercises we've talked about, Deepak's or ours. Just noticing what judgment feels like in your body and kind of where that's coming from. And then we have a question of the week. And let's see. What is keeping you from feeling complete and whole?
I would say that what is keeping me from feeling complete and whole is ideals of perfectionism. And it keeps me sometimes from moving forward because I'm like worried too much about like getting it right, or might be stressed because I'm trying to get something perfect, or I might not say something to somebody because like, oh, I don't want them to think I'm not perfect or whatever. And so I think that can keep me, well, that in itself is probably me not feeling whole, but then also it can keep me from performing sometimes too.
Mm-hmm. I think I definitely have some of that as well that I struggle with in moments when I don't feel whole. I would say I actually feel complete and whole. In the moments when I don't, I would say it's a mix of the perfectionism, but also like just this deep fear that something, or deep-seated fear, I guess, maybe that like, that something is wrong with me or something like that. I've been doing a lot of exploring. So
wrong with you, or like something missing from like your life type thing?
No, just wrong with me. That was one of the fears in the upper limit that they talked about, like something. And so yeah, I would say in moments like sometimes it's like that, like kind of imposter syndrome, like, can it really be this good? Like, am I really worthy of all this stuff? And just those moments. So in moments when I'm not feeling whole, it's probably one of those two things.
So listeners, what is keeping you from feeling complete and whole? That's something also to think about this week. And we appreciate you joining us. We will see you next time.
Bye, y'all.